Hello, my name is Lou. This is Katie,
Hey.
and you're listening to Files from the Other Side. This week, we're opening the files on
Go ships.
ghost ships.
Go ships!
Ahoy, mateys.
How did I not break out a pirate impersonation?
Arr.
Arr. Arr. Ghost ships we be talking about.
So, today, I think the big hitter of ghost ships is the Queen Mary. I know that this has been talked about numerous times in numerous paranormal spaces, podcasts, whatever. So I I feel like I want to offer a little bit of my own perspective on the Queen Mary because I've been there, and I don't want to like lean too heavily into the history. I think you can look it up. It's been talked about, but
That's
I
why
will
God
go over
invented
some.
Wikipedia.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And honestly, I will hit some pretty good little nuggets of history, but I want to talk about the hauntings on board. I want to talk about my paranormal investigation on board.
Oh shit, it was paranormal. You didn't just go, you paranormally investigated it.
Yeah, like all night.
Oh damn. Oh damn.
Yeah.
I don't think I've even heard this story, like, in our friendship yet.
Oh, and you know what's funny is the video's on YouTube. It's me and Sophie on YouTube doing a paranormal investigation together.
Oh my god. I am such a bad friend. I'm so sorry. I will rectify that the second we are done with FaceTime after this recording.
Yeah, for real. But you're not a bad friend. I don't think that.
Oh my god. Thank you. I love that. I love you. Thank you. It makes me feel better.
But the Queen Mary is queen. She reigns supreme in terms of ships, in my opinion. She's huge. But so she was constructed starting in 1930, but the launching voyage didn't occur until 1934. My favorite thing that I learned in researching the Queen Mary was that there was a notable English psychic, Lady Mabel Fortescue Harrison. She quotes, "The Queen Mary will know her greatest fame and popularity when she never sails another mile or carries another fare-paying passenger."
Wait.
Right? She was like, so basically the Queen Mary's going to be famous, but she won't be sailing anymore. And like, lo and behold, this psychic is right. Like,
That's wild.
the Queen Mary is so famous now because she's parked at Long Beach in California, and she's a haunted location.
Have I been to the Queen Mary? Maybe as a
I feel like
child,
you
because
remember.
honestly, Long Beach is where my grandma lives. So I'm like, we probably did. Maybe not.
You've
I don't
probably
know.
seen it. Maybe
Probably
you've
at
seen
least
it.
seen it. Yeah.
It was docked until World War II. Then it was converted into a troop ship, but it was dubbed the Grey Ghost in World War II because it was painted completely gray. Because it made the Queen Mary almost invisible when it was like out in the ocean because of the gray skies, the gray mist, like the ocean. Like you couldn't see that shit. She was so big that she had to be painted gray, but then called her the Grey Ghost because you couldn't really see her and all the sea stuff. So it was like it's become a very powerful play on words to describe this haunted location essentially. But in its first voyages, it carried the elite, but after the war, or during the war, I should say, it held up to 16,000 troops in those tight quarters. And like, I can't even imagine 16,000 people aboard the Queen Mary.
Sorry, I'm just
when I was
processing. I can't even
Yeah.
fathom that many people being on a ship.
No, and honestly, not even on that ship. I mean, it's huge, but like, to be honest, like 16,000 people is a lot of people to cram into something like a ship. But then after the war, it became once again a ship for the elite. Walt Disney sailed in 1951 to attend a European premiere of Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool. I like that.
That's cool, huh?
I like that tidbit.
In the same year of 1951, Churchill and Truman both stayed aboard. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
it's been in Long Beach, California ever since 1967. It's a hotel, a tourist attraction for many nautical history buffs, but also spooky story lovers.
Us. You.
I
Both of
love
us, but
myself
you.
some ocean action, and I also love myself a haunted hotel. I think that's like my favorite haunted
Mm,
location, TBH. Is like
I
hotels.
I think so too. Insane asylums are too. It's too much. It's too
Too
much.
real. I've been in one myself, and I'm not trying to.
No, 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 no. We broke into one night in Massachusetts, and I fucking made the dude I was hanging out with like hold my hand. I was like, literally, I was like, you cannot stop. I'm gonna cry everywhere.
It's terrifying.
It's
But I
terrifying.
think the Queen Mary is not so.
Mm.
There are reasons like the haunted history. Like there are reasons why it would be scary, but it's not like sad. Well, it's sad. It's just different type. Just different
Mm.
type of sad. So in terms of hauntings, there's so much that can be encountered on the Queen Mary. There's this famous story of a lady in white. It was a woman who boarded to greet her soldier husband but was never met by him. So she like mourned him, and her spirit still stays on the ship as like a lady in white.
Mm.
And she's near the piano on I think one of the A or B deck. I don't remember where. I think it was B deck because that's where we stayed. And then there's Jackie, who is a seemingly intelligent spirit attached to no historical person, but she roams around the pool. And the pool, this is the coolest part about the ship, in my opinion. The pool has a quartz crystal ceiling that the tour guide mentioned could create a portal effect with the seawater and or the pool water if the pool were filled, but it's not. So it could be the seawater, like forming like a portal. And I think this is the most interesting point of the entire ship, because that pool itself creates its own reason for all of this stuff to be even happening, besides regular ghostly activities, like regular ghost shit. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because
Like it
it's
creates like an actual opportunity.
yeah, because clear quartz is like the amplifier.
Hmm?
Like that's wild.
I think it's
Is it-
wild. I think it's like to this day when I heard about that, I to this day I think it's the most interesting point about the entire ship.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So the other
It's
haunted location, sorry.
no, I'm sorry. I'm just so processing. Like it's fucking clear quartz instead of glass for the
It's like a whole ceiling part. And
wow.
I never got to see inside the pool room, and I don't know how often tours do get to go in there, but I'm curious to I'm curious because Jackie, this seemingly intelligent spirit, comes around near the pool. And
Mm.
there's, for me, I feel like it would be reason to believe or suspect that Jackie doesn't have to be related to the Queen Mary, but maybe enjoys the Queen Mary as her own intelligent spirit. She could be a water spirit. She doesn't have to be human. Maybe we call her Jackie, think she's like this little girl. But
Mm.
like I also know that the paranormal can fool us in any type of way. Very trickstery type situations can happen. We can be perceiving this Jackie, but what if poor Jackie is just like a front for something else, more
Yeah.
intelligent or more able to communicate through water?
Yeah. I mean, that's like we also like personify all of our like deities too. Like we put human things, like we make everything in human forms in some fashion because like humans just can't even conceptualize of things that aren't like this is how we experience the world. So this is the what we project onto everything. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
But it totally, like, I think there's reason for, I would believe, like, so, okay, I'm going to go through the rest of the haunted things, but then I'm going
Hmm.
to get into my investigation itself, okay?
Yeah. Please.
So,
Please.
the next haunted location on board is the isolation ward.
Ugh.
It's really freaking scary. This is, I think, the scariest haunting place on board. It was an infirmary for the sick, passengers and soldiers, to the extent that surgeries were even performed there. But so like the soldiers would often die there, passengers would get sick there, surgeries on soldiers would happen, you know, shit was serious. In my first stay at the Queen Mary, they hadn't actually opened the entire ship to the public because it was just after COVID, after their reopening after COVID. And so they didn't let me into the isolation ward or go below deck. So I didn't get to see any of the inner workings where a lot of traditional paranormal investigators get to go, or at least more famous ones who have like content creatory status that they can get into these places to hype up the ship. Basically, like, I couldn't get in because it had just opened from COVID, but I noticed like about 2 months later they reopened everything and the tours started full throttle and stuff, so they were getting to it. But like I said, so I never got to see into the isolation ward, but it's a creepy spot for sure, and you could feel the energy coming from even just aside of the doors. I'd be remiss if I didn't also tell you about B340. It's a room. It's rumored to be haunted, and it's so haunted that it's like not even, they didn't rent it for a really long time, and it's clearly rentable at a price, but they leave the space alone. It used to have a bunch of like weird occultist stuff in it, but we couldn't even access that part of the floor, so we couldn't even walk past the room. All those parts were closed too, and there was a time when we were on board and that hallway was open to like custodial, and we were like, should we just
play till the ref calls it out?
I can't be bad, so I was like,
so
no.
You get something attached to you that you don't want.
Sophie, I know, and Sophie was like really gung-ho to do it, and I was like, yes, but we can't just like vlog this.
That face you made was so
like,
good.
If we turn off the camera.
We turn off
no,
the
but
camera?
we didn't. We just kept investigating like how we in the places that we could. So, but so the other thing that I thought was cool, that because I have actually gone, is that we interviewed a few of the staff in the hotel, and they gave us some interesting stories. So I have a couple from a couple people. There's
we'll
this
be
guy
doing that when we go to Winchester Mystery House. Just saying.
Oh my god, I cannot wait for that. Okay, so there's this guy. Captain, he called himself. Not obviously the captain of the ship, but Sophie was convinced he was. I was like, he wasn't, but okay. Anyways.
That's just a pet name.
Yeah. Well, so he told us that he didn't experience anything on board, but he grew up living alongside spirits. He told me the story of his own haunted house in the South and how his sister levitated one night.
My mom's levitated.
Dude. I was like, that's a sick ass story. Thank you for telling me. And he also, like, when we were on board, he pointed out, he was like, just so you know, everything isn't good and everything isn't bad. He was like really warning us when we were paranormal investigating. And I was just like, thanks, bro. But also I'm so excited. So you can't dim my light tonight.
Yeah.
So, and then we ran into a few maintenance crew, and they told us that they'd heard doors slamming when there's no one around. An engineer who let us into the ballroom one morning that was also closed off, but he let us in. He explained a long story about some papers, like some blueprint papers, and he had like left them somewhere, and then like they showed up somewhere else, and then he was talking a lot about synchronicities. Like, he never said they were synchronicities himself, but I figured it out throughout his whole story. I was like, this is a very paranormal experience. Like, it might not be traditional, like a ghost apparition or like the door slamming, but it's a whole paranormal journey because he actually works on the ship day to day. He knows the ins and outs. He's one of the people who knows more about the ship than like almost any other person would, because he is an engineer on the ship. And he explained to us the ballroom. He explained to us a bunch of stuff that he was like, this is the kind of wood, this is the kind of lights, this is what we have to do to keep it preserved. Like, he knew so much. But clearly it seemed like a story that was bigger than just the ship being haunted. It was like his paranormal, mysterious time on the Queen Mary, like an ever-evolving paranormal story he's going through. And I loved it. I thought it was so cool.
That is very cool.
But yeah, like most of the staff was also new to the ship at the time because COVID had just got alleviated. So a lot of them didn't have any new experiences, or they didn't care enough about the hauntedness of it, and was like, whatever. Like, whenever I was asking people, they'd be like, especially if they were not interested, they were like, no. And I was like, okay, just asking.
All right. Don't need to be a about it. That's hella funny.
Uh,
That's wild.
anyways,
I mean, I get that sometimes when I ask people, like, have you seen anything? Like, sometimes people are like, no, but like the Winchester. Almost like if you're working in a place that's haunted, like you got to be prepared for questions like that. You can't just be like, no.
yeah,
Like you got
yeah.
to be like, no, but Roger has some good stories, or no, but I hope sometime soon I'll get spooked. Like,
And especially for a hotel, some of these people were like already giving up on their job, and I was like, "You work at the Queen Mary, dude. Sorry, but I don't actually feel that bad for you
no.
comparatively." Back to the Queen Mary, my paranormal investigation. So, like I said, I have an entire YouTube video investigation on my YouTube channel at Skyler's period schematonics. You can watch it there. Or some points of interest for me. This is like the main experience that I had. We were walking down the M deck, which I think is the deck that has all the like bigger suites on it, like the Churchill suites, like the Eisenhower suites, whatever. I was just walking down and I get this overwhelming dizzy and nauseous feeling that I actually grab the railing that's like on the side of the ship, because they have these plastic railings. They're not even plastic, they're like some sort of material, like an old school plastic that is like indestructible, because they did it for the guests on board, because when the ship was like moving really a lot, that people could steady themselves on the railing while it was like going. So I felt like I like almost dropped to the ground. And then later we meet up with the maintenance guys that I talked about the slamming doors with. And I asked them, how likely is it that the ship actually causes someone to shift their position as it's standing in Long Beach right now? And they were like, on a stormy day, it can only move 13 degrees each side. And I was like, I asked them, is that enough to like create some sort of like shift in position? And he's like, barely. You might feel it, but barely. And then I was just like, so it was a perfect night. Like, no, the water had to have been clear. The water had to have been steady. And I felt like I was being thrown to the ground. Like, I felt like I was so dizzy, so nauseous, I couldn't see. And I felt just like, I felt so scared too. And so the other thing to note too, there's like the hallways in the ship create this like tunnel vision effect, because the ship like bows. Right? And so when you're looking straight down, you can't see the other side of the ship how your mind like expects to see down the end of a hallway. It cuts off into this like weird little tunnel. And it's really disorienting, but also even looking at that wasn't disorienting enough for me to just fall down. So I suspect
You got something.
like as a psychic medium, I think that like I just am influenced by these things. Like I think that you can just be influenced by any instance on the ship. Like, it doesn't matter who. It's not like something, I don't think like something attached to me. What I think is like, I was thrust into a moment, into sort of like a moment in time or space where I was like in someone else's shoes at another point in history for like just briefly enough that my own energy was like affected. That's kind of how I think of it, because it was too normal of an occurrence for like the place itself. If that makes sense. It made a lot of sense. So I was thinking like, like even the elites, these like comfortable elites that were staying on board, they would at least be bound to seasickness, right? Like they would at least have nausea in the best of circumstances. But like, it also is a reminder of how many lives were lost throughout the voyages, especially in that isolation ward. And I didn't even cover the soldiers that the Queen Mary actually ran over. There was like 99 something people died because the Queen Mary just ran these soldiers over because it couldn't stop. Yeah. So like the front of the ship is supposed to be super haunted too, because that's where it made impact with the ship of soldiers. It couldn't stop. Yeah, it's the stories are sad. It's not asylum sad, but it's sad.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here laughing. Okay. I truly love the Queen Mary, though. I cannot even express enough that the Queen Mary is such a special place to me. So that's my piece with my ghost ship, my level up my life, the Queen herself.
The Queen herself. The Queen Mary.
The Queen Mary.
Yeah. What a ghost ship. What a ghost ship. Mine well, dulls in comparison. It's just some crazy, like, because ghost ships can be a bunch of different things. Like yours is like obviously a haunted ship. This one is in the category of just abandoned, just straight up like they found it abandoned and wrecked.
That's really cool.
The Carroll A Deering. She went. They had like a switch out their captains. They did one of the first captain became ill on their way down to Rio, I think. It made its passage to Rio de Janeiro, and then on the way back, it goes to Barbados. This is in 1920. Yeah, probably 1920 because it starts like it's back in the United States on its way home by the end of January 1921. It is, where is it? January 29th, 1921, Cape Lookout Lightship. This is in North Carolina. So like they see it and they hear from the ship their anchors are lost.
Wow.
Okay, whatever. Fucking weird. And
How
then
do you lose an anchor for a ship like that big? Huh.
Right. Is Barbados in the Bermuda Triangle? Like, is it some Bermuda Triangle
I was gonna
shit?
say,
like,
after you're done, we should discuss for like a second at least the Bermuda Triangle and
the
this
Bermuda
ghost ship
Triangle
journey.
of it all, because that is definitely...
I have my own theories and my own conundrums with this. So
yeah, so it makes it to Barbados. We hear on the 29th of January 1921 that they have lost their fucking anchors. And then it seemed fine on the 31st. It like apparently it had seemed fine but seemed unmanned on the 31st by Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. And then it gets torn apart in Diamond Shoals. And then they couldn't get out for a few days because of the inclement weather. So the Coast Guard investigates a few days later. It had been run aground. Food was set out as if to sit for a bit. I'm fascinated by stories. Like I love story. There's a lighthouse story, the Elaine Moore mystery too, that's similar to that. Like food was set out, and then there's no crew, no lifeboats. Like what the fuck? Why? That was like one of the things in the thing. Like, why would a crew abandon a perfectly good ship? And it's like, was it mutiny?
And a perfectly good meal.
And a perfectly good meal. Like, thank you, right? Like, what are we doing here? We can't be wasting food like this, you guys. And yeah, so there's the theory. The government was like, it was probably captured by pirates. Mutiny, maybe?
In 1921, there were pirates out on the sea.
I mean, there's still pirates on the sea today.
But like pirates that would attack a ship like that, so close to shore, right? Because they could see it.
That's the truth. Yeah, right? Like, that's the weird thing.
It's like the U.S. government, like, by saying, oh, it's probably pirates, it's so stupid to me because it's like how the U.S. government says the thing about, like, yeah, we have evidence of UFOs, or no, we don't have evidence. Whatever they say about it, right? They come up with like these weird excuses in ufology, right? Mm-hmm. And they're never satisfiable. They're never satiating the public, but they're always creating a reaction in the public for some reason.
Interesting.
So why say pirates? I think that's like a really big question. Actually, why say pirates?
Here is why. Okay, I found out why. Okay, April 1921. So a few months later, there is a dude from Diamond Shoals who gets a message in a bottle claiming the Deering was captured by an oil-burning boat. So the State Department invests and is like, okay, potentially pirates. Newspapers start suggesting Bolsheviks. It's a Bolshevik plot to steal ships, supplies, like cargo crew, whatever. Okay. But in September 1921, we find out that the man who discovered the message in the bottle was the one who originally wrote it. And
so there was fake ass bottles.
Fake ass bottles. We have no. So then the fucking, I guess the State Department who fuck, I forget where this is from anyways, but I think this is Reader's Digest. So there's like also some weird like, oh, there was another theory that it crashed. There was another ship that disappeared around the same place around the same time, the Hewitt, and they were like maybe they like ran into each other, but there'd be more like the Deering wouldn't be grounded. Like it wouldn't be run aground. Second of all, like it would have been like there would have been more debris. That's like government was like, no, that's not a thing.
No, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
and
and
there was no evidence of that. Then
yeah, like you would have seen.
There'd be physical evidence of a crash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it is. Yeah, there's some other shit. The Hewitt, and then there's also the USS Cyclops, which took a similar route, like a few years earlier, like Rio to Barbados to the U.S. coast, and then like disappeared somewhere off of North Carolina. Like the last place that one was seen was also in North Carolina, which is wild. So again, like, is it Bermuda Triangle? Is there something in the waters out by North Carolina in the coast that we don't know about?
It seems like you could say both things. I think the Bermuda Triangle is less out of the Gulf, actually. I think it's like, it includes part of it, but I don't think it's, because it's the tip of San Juan, right? Or
yeah.
San Juan.
No, I think you're right. It's the tip of like Puerto Rico or something like that.
Puerto Rico, the Bermudas, and then the tip of Florida. Whatever that's called. I'm not a Floridian. I apologize, Floridians.
The Keys? The Florida Keys?
Something like that. So it's like, that's the so I feel like it cuts off the Gulf. So it actually might not be a part of it, but it doesn't mean that it could, because Barbados might be in there somewhere though. So even if it passed through Barbados, what's your tea on the Bermuda Triangle, if we can be so bold?
I wish I knew more about it. Like, I think it's a thing. Like, I think that weird shit, because like you hear about planes disappearing all the time. I was gonna say there is a story, was it the Valentich disappearance, where on Supernatural, where she talked about sometimes there's currents underneath the ocean that can take things away, so like potentially like there might be some.
I've read a lot of theories about the Bermuda Triangles, like what they call upswells, right? Just like upswells, and then we'll take out Eva Plain. But the thing about it is like upswells only get so high. And then the other thing is like powerful winds. Like there are a lot of scientific reasons why, and evidentiary reasons why planes, ships, and all that kind of stuff would be crashing there. Also, the other explanation, because ships, right? Because that comes earlier than planes. Ships crashing in the Bermuda Triangle. It comes from a different time. The reason why that was happening is because I think when ships would crash into the islands thinking it was mainland. And then they wouldn't be able to get their ships out, so they ended up colonizing the Bermudas, the places down there, and interacting with the native indigenous folks down there. And there was serious, like, obvious tension because settlers, like Shakespeare wrote The Tempest talking about the Bermuda Triangle. This is how old this shit goes back to. Like, I have this whole thing about it, yeah. So, like, there's... The Tempest like has this whole conversation between the son of a witch, Caliban, right? Because his mom had died or something like that, and he gets all mad, and then the settler, I don't remember what his name is in the text, but the Caliban gets mad at him, and he explains like you are the reason my mom is dead, and like the settler's like, you're the reason why I have all this trouble. And he's like, he basically is just like, wouldn't you though, like if you were in my shoes, like hate you instead, like, and the settler can never get it in his mind why.
Barbados is outside the Bermuda Triangle. Sorry.
I'm just okay. So the reason why I like The Tempest for the Bermuda Triangle so much is because I think it gives real world credence to actually debunking the myth. Because if we are to suggest it is a magical place, it is not unlike any other magical place, actually. It's just not. Anywhere and everywhere could be magical depending on the people. I think what gets lost in translation is that, yes, there are native indigenous practices that include magic, that include witchcraft, that include these things that can magically or sort of like, just kind of like magically influence things. And so it's like we have all these legends built up of like white men or warplanes crashing to do what? It only demonizes the place, in my opinion. It makes it cool for like one specific reason only, and it doesn't make it cool for any other specific reason. It doesn't like do anything for the people there. And so I always have thought the Bermuda Triangle is not what we think it is. I think it is, if I would say it's anything paranormal, it is just a response to settler colonialism. And I think it's the ocean has its own powers. The ocean has its own spirits. It can do whatever it wants at that. Like, it can drown sailors. It can drown warplanes if it deems fit. And, like, that's as far as I'm willing to take it with the Bermuda Triangle, if I'm being quite honest.
Okay. I like that. Because when you were talking about like it not being more magical than anywhere else, I immediately think of like ley lines. Like I'm like, oh, maybe it's just like a hotbed of like, maybe there's a couple ley lines because you got the Tropic of Cancer going straight through it too. You know what I mean? Like it, like maybe it's just like an energy field, or just the ocean can do whatever the ocean can do whatever the fuck it wants.
Yeah.
At any time.
The ocean is its own power spiritually, and especially when you talk about water spirit, like it represents the unconscious. It wants death. Imminently, it wants humans cannot live in water.
No.
We will die.
We will die. We will not be able to breathe and die.
Yeah. Anyways.
Fascinating.
Well, but now that we're talking about dying, what is the veil? Let's get into the veil.
What a segue.
I think that it is worth talking about on a podcast called Files from the Other Side, that we start to answer the more philosophical takes of the veil, the other side. But let's start there with the veil. What is it? What do you conceptualize it as? And what does it mean to you in your everyday life?
The veil basically I think of as the boundary between like our perceived like reality and our day-to-day going to work, coming up here, fucking recording a podcast, like the day-to-day way that we perceive reality. It's like the boundary that keeps the ether from being getting to us all the time, you know, so that ghosts aren't interrupting us every single time we go out and do something, or aliens or hungry ghosts or gods or whatever, like or aliens. I do sometimes, I'm like, maybe the thinning of the veil isn't just like, maybe the veil, like maybe it's not just the ether, maybe it is like access to different dimensions and stuff like that too, because like you think about like aliens being like coming and going in and out of like space travel is really fucking hard and like not easy. So like maybe it's not that aliens are traveling from space, maybe they're coming from different universes through like
like
thinning
they're kind
of the
of
veil.
Interdimensional beings, and sort of they can travel the spatial time-space continuum, but we are stuck in our own reality, sort of.
Yeah, but interdimensional, I don't know, because I think dimensions are actually what we measure our like this plane with. Like time is a dimension, I would argue, that we are operating within. So like, but multi, like, but also interdimensional is how everyone's going to conceptualize it best.
It's hard to talk about aliens and also ghosts and also all these other things, because I think what we touch on is then the amount of possibilities that are infinite once we cross the veil. Because we can talk about like multiple dimensions, but we also do not know that once we cross the veil that there is anything other than what we've crossed into, like another reality to live in. Like I think of like reincarnation at that point, where it's like, even if I were reincarnated as like a little cat, like a kitten, I was born again as a kitten, I'm still in a different lived reality. I may be on Earth again, but I'm still in a different lived reality, and I've crossed the veil. but I can't actually do anything else than a cat can. A cat is a cat. So it's not like I can be like thinking, oh, the veil, like, you know, like as a cat, I'm not going to be thinking about aliens. Like, I'm not going to care.
True.
I'll be thinking about my own cat thoughts and like whatever.
It'd be like, this patch of sunlight looks warm and fuzzy.
I'm going to sleep all day and purr and be cute.
Yeah.
But anyways, the veil for me is literally just, so what I named it as was like a boundary between our reality and then all other possibilities that are infinite within the universe. And it can be crossed within a lifetime, but it also is mostly crossed when we die. And the reason I say that is because some people can communicate with spirits. Some people can communicate with the talent of like interacting beyond the veil. Like like I would say I'm one of these people. There's a lot of people. Anybody can actually do it. It's about how you practiced, honestly.
Yeah.
But like, essentially the veil to me is like a thickening or a thinning of a condition where something's changing so that you can perceive these alternate infinite possibilities. Halloween, for example, is I feel like it's a leading example because it's the one day a year where Americans have different ideas. Number one, have different ideas about what's beyond us. We're all dressing up in like costumes, but we all have our different beliefs. Like we all have our different ways that we think of the world. Halloween is sort of like a collective, yes, we believe the other side exists. Yes, we believe there are monsters, goblins, galore, ghosts, whatever. And there are also other like celebratory holidays around that time, like Samhain, Dia de los Muertos. So the veil, I argue, like on Halloween is like, it's thin for a while. It's thin for a few weeks at the end of October into November. So during that whole time, like it's a very good time to investigate, to communicate with spirits. It's the reason why we do our holidays the way and when we do them, because we as cultures collectively over a lot of past have been interacting with the veil in this way forever. So that's like my biggest example of like how I think about it, because that's the easiest one for me to sort of sit with. It's very kidlit. Like I feel like you could explain that to a kid.
Well, I mean, Einstein said, do you know anything if you can't explain it to your grandma? Like, same thing. Same thing. Grandma or kid. Like, you don't know anything. If you don't know a subject unless you can explain it to somebody else. So, and I like your definition a little bit better. Cause again, I like mine's, it's very, cause again, when I can't count for,
hard.
Yeah. I mean, it is, cause it's conceptually hard. And I think I might be dipping into, well, actually, I think I'm probably just the right amount dipping into my theory of everything.
It leads you to that.
It leads us to the bigger picture of like, what the fuck's going on, man?
Yeah.
What the
things we want to know for sure, but we'll never know until we either die or live all the lives possible. If that's possible ever. I don't think it is. So anyways, okay, so the Queen Mary, like I said, okay, so that quartz crystal pool ceiling, the portal with the water, with like, okay, so the water isn't actually in the pool because they've drained the pool, and how they fill it up is they just like fill it up. So the Long Beach water it sits in today while the pool sits empty could still be a conductor for spirits to travel through with that quartz crystal ceiling. And I think the Queen Mary, if you are just an observer, you still have the opportunity to observe the spiritual realm on the Queen Mary, even if you're not intending haunted experience. I think even if you're just like a hotel goer or just whatever, you're not even, you have like, it's like doubled down the fact that that portal exists. The feeling I get from the ship is that the veil is thin there. You have that feeling the minute you pull into the parking lot and park your car. that it's like, even if you weren't intending to have like a haunted experience, haunted tour or anything, you're going on board a spiritually charged place.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just think so much about that crystal quartz pool. And I just think it's like a conduit, or it's like conductor?
I mean, well, again, like water is a conductor, and also quartz is clear quartz specifically is called the amplifier in crystal, like, because when you work with crystals, you're supposed to, like, clear quartz amplifies the effects of all of the crystals.
Yeah.
Like, it amplifies the effects of something. So it's utterly fascinating to me that it would be a clear quartz ceiling over water. Like, that just would magnify so much. So much. Not shocked by this at all.
No,
like,
it's not shocking. What it is to me is just like a good reason.
Yeah. But I am like baffled. Like, why would you? I guess to be extravagant, why would you have? But like, clear quartz versus like why was it just not glass? Like, that's so wild to me. Like,
yeah. I don't know. I'll have to ask the engineer the next time I go. Oh.
I want to go with you. We should also stay at the Roosevelt. Just saying.
I really want to stay at the Queen Mary again this Christmas. So I'm crossing my fingers for the opportunity to go again, and
that'd be fun.
Yeah. The last bit of our conversation that we can start to wrap up is spiritual protection during paranormal investigation. That's the last thing I wanted to touch on in this episode, because it's the first thing I want to sort of talk about in terms of like episodicness, because as we go through the episodes, it's important to maintain protection and not drawing in energies, even for the podcast, that we don't want to engage with, that we have no intention to engage with. And so do you have, I mean, I know you don't do a lot of paranormal investigation, but do you have like spiritual protection rituals or any tips?
So this is so fascinating. I went to a psychic in Vegas on my recent vacation, and she told me to sanctify myself. And that meant like cleansing my aura and like protecting myself from like the evil eye, because I was like, how do we get, like, what's the next step on the glow up? I feel like I'm like leveling up right now, but I need like I need some extra help. And so I know that like when you're supposed to, the few times that I have done any spell work, you're supposed to like draw the boundary around yourself and be like, this is my energetic boundary. Don't fuck with, like, I'm not trying to come out. You're not trying to come in. But
drawing the circle is usually what it's called.
And she told me to work with, what's to protect me? Evil eye. The evil eye to protect me. She told me to get some evil eye charms and pendants. She was just trying to sell me so hard. And I was like, girl, I don't think you understand how much evil eye shit I got from all of my trips to Greece. So the drawing the boundary, evil eye, frankincense, like smudging. Like, I know that's like a way to like cleanse and protect. Salt in doorways is how Amy's family puts their salt in doorways, or the corners of the room, or how they protect from things that want to get you.
Those are all good ways. Smudging, though, don't do it with white sage unless you're native or like have access to that plant. I usually, if I'm gonna smudge, I'll just use a stick of incense. Frankincense
is like my go-to incense for it. Frankincense I would use. Lotus, I like to use some lotus incense too.
Okay. So when I think of protecting myself, I especially like the idea of the evil eye, because it insinuates that you should protect yourself from people too. Negative energies and ill intent can come from anyone in your group, and even your own unresolved issues. It's more likely, actually, that there are people who will be intending harm rather than spirits. In my experience, spirits are more willing to communicate and be with you if you respect their space, especially a haunted location. But like, respect the spirit you're communicating with as if it were any other person. And the more you demonize a spirit, the more likely you are to have a negative outcome, just as if you were to do that with a person, because you need to deal with your own unresolved demons, essentially. My things, especially on paranormal investigation, actually, no, day to day, I use black tourmaline. Like, that's my go-to protection stone. Obsidian and smoky quartz are also two other good ones, but black tourmaline for me actually does the job, because obsidian can be used in scrying. Smoky quartz is too clear for me, and black tourmaline has just the right what's the word for, like, just, it's not texture, but it's like the way the stone looks. It's like super jagged, so there's no possibility that like you can scry into it, that like there's nothing connecting you technically to the stone that I feel like could with the other two. That's just my own thing though. Black salt, like you said, or salt, generally salt to clear, but black salt to protect. So what I do to make my own black salt is that I have this bowl that I light incense in, and it's filled with salt, and so I just stick the incense in the salt, and then the ash covers the salt, and then I mix it together, and I have my own black salt. And you can use that, like you said, on door frames, windows, or in your own protection ritual or spell bag, jar, amulet, talisman. You can do whatever you want with it. Protection rituals, like you said, sanctify your space, maintaining protection and spiritual hygiene as per usual. If you are not doing this, well, I hesitate to say like anybody should do anything, but like if you're not already spiritually hygienic, why are you doing anything? Because it should be about you first. It should be about you first. It's not about anything else. You don't want to convince people that you can even talk with spirits unless you are convinced yourself that you are safe, that you are whole, that you know you're safe day to day, essentially. So when you go on an investigation, I think the best thing is like an amulet, a talisman, or a spell bag or spell jar for your pack. So like you have all your tools, you have all your stuff that you're going in with, spirit box, whatever, EMF stuff. Just add an amulet or talisman or spell jar or spell bag into the pack, and you should be good. Like, honestly, and it could be like however you want it to be. You can have the items we've listed in your own ritual, but definitely meditate with the intention that the item protects you from harmful spirits, and meditate with that long enough that you feel like the ritual is over, and you can put it in your bag, and you can renew that ritual and meditate on it however often you want to sort of re-energize that spell for yourself. And the last thing I'll say about protecting yourself with the paranormal, I have a really good book recommendation, actually. It's called The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal by J. Allen Cross, who's a medium. He wrote this book that I think helps anybody become a paranormal investigator, but especially for the witch who will want to take up paranormal investigating. It's so clear cut and it's so informative that text is like almost foundational to my experience with the paranormal, because it allowed me to be like, okay, how technically is this done? And then what do I need to be doing on the meditative spiritual back end? And there were a lot of prompts, a lot of stuff to do, and it was a really good one.
I like your recommendations for protection. They were probably a bit more thorough than mine, because I have done way less paranormal investigating, and so I felt called out on my spiritual hygiene. Like, I need to be gotta stay on top of it, man.
Okay, I don't want anybody to feel called out about that, though. I full on realize that there are other things at play in people's lives, like capitalism, settler colonialism. May I go on? I'm just saying that it is a lot harder to maintain spiritual hygiene in a world that doesn't even want you to be spiritual.
And like I was about to be like, I have just been neglecting my spiritual needs for the last 6-7 years. Like, I mean, truly. Yes. Take care of yourself. Make sure you're protected. Don't put toxins into your body. You know, I don't know. I did it for 13 years. I can't talk shit.
I maintain it's hard, and when the world doesn't want you to be spiritual, to even practice into things like integrity and hygiene. And I think that the more we do, the more we're putting a middle finger up to the systems that of power that be. And
Mm.
that in and of itself is spiritually fulfilling and peaceful anyways. So, and with that, thank you for listening to this episode on ghost ships of Files from the Other Side. You can find us on Instagram. I am at Skyler's schematonics. Katie is at the legendary _hitchhiker. Share the podcast if you like it. Do all the things, subscribe, follow, and
We'll see you on the other side.